A very good afternoon to all the viewers. Welcome back for another episode of BW People HR Voices. Today, we are joined by Ms. Rekha Nair, who is the Head of Human Resources at Tredence India. With over 2 decades of leadership experience, Rekha has led the HR function for teams with over 15,000 employees and has been in charge of talent management, leadership development, and learning and development in India. Currently at Tredence, Rekha has made significant strides in leading the people agenda and cultivating a work culture that promotes continuous learning and growth. Firstly, welcome, Rekha. Thank you for being here with us today and giving us your time.
Thank you so much, Sami. The pleasure is mine.
So today's conversation is going to revolve around the fast rising influence of L&D on companies' business imperatives and initiatives. So Rekha, with large-scale upskilling and reskilling initiatives, they tend not to be progressive fast enough. It takes a lot of time to implement large-scale initiatives. Whereas if we compare it to more personalized and individualistic employee-driven learning opportunities, they inspire internal mobility within organizations. What are your views on this?
So in my view, Savi, it has to be a balance. On one hand, an organization, if it's geared towards a certain path in terms of where it wants to position itself in terms of building capability, there will be certain initiatives which will focus on large-scale upskilling, reskilling. So for example, in a technology industry, companies like ours will be looking at really strengthening its technology in data science and AI. So in these cases, the large scale reskilling, upskilling would continue to be the norm. That being said, I think this would be the first layer. Over and above that, you're looking at very personalized, individualized, customized learning paths. And it's important to also tie it towards the employee's life cycle. So let's kind of break the employee life cycle. Part one would be when someone is a new joiner. The whole onboarding in itself has to be a very customized learning. So it's a very point in time. Similarly, when people are going through a change in role or are ready to get themselves for the next technology or the next role in their career, you have very individualized, customized learning paths for them. Not only do they lap it up well, you have a direct impact on the org, the performance. So you see faster results. And then, of course, the second layer that I spoke about, which sits above the foundation, is the whole individual, customized learning paths, learning journeys, where you give the flexibility to the individual on what they want to learn, how they want to learn, and you kind of align it with their own aspirations as well as the organization mandate. So I think it has to be a balance. On one hand, you will have a lot of large-scale upskilling, reskilling happening, and on the other hand, it will be a more personalized learning journey and platform. Let me also try and give you some examples of what we've done recently in Tredence. For example, we are looking at a very one of our marquee programs has been the data science upskilling program. So the design of the program is an end-to-end upskilling journey into data science and AI. But what we've done is we've kind of handpicked people, and it's a very structured, curated program for 3-4 months. So it kind of helps. There's a start, there's an end, and most important is at the end of these learning programs or upskilling, you have to be very clear on what does it mean to the individual? So what happens after the program? So I think one of the key success metrics for all upskilling programs, irrespective of the mode or format, is can you ensure that it ties to the individual's own success and the organization's growth? So you have to ensure that the individual moves into the skill or technology that they have been trained in. So linking it to internal mobility, I think, is going to be one of the key success criteria.
Right. So Rekha, you mentioned the first layer being recruitment and the screening process of candidates. So traditionally, if you look at the screening process, it involved, just looking at the educational background and the certifications that the employees had. But today, it's completely different. It has evolved to what kind of soft skills and hard skills the employees have.
Right.
So according to you, what are some of the important soft skills as well as the hard skills that are important today to sustain in the industry when, the generative AI and technology advancements are happening and transforming every day?
Absolutely. So you're right. I think conventional lens has always been educational background, experience, and certifications, and so on. We are seeing a huge shift in terms of skill-based hiring. which means we're looking at not only the individual's technical skills, but also the whole learnability quotient, the potential, how well adapted the individual is in terms of picking up technology, the awareness on the new age digital technologies, tools, you name it, the Gen AI, automation, robotics, and so on. So a lot of technical assessments, assessments on learnability quotient, and also a lot of focus on the soft skills. Now, there again, I think I would like to break it into the job experience group. So at entry level, there are a lot of assessments we do on, I think, the technical aptitudes, problem solving skills, analytical skills. Under soft skills, the ability to articulate, communicate effectively, networking and collaboration is also fast emerging as one of the important soft skills that we look for. At the mid to manager level, I think it's a lot about the technical and functional depth, proficiency in using AI tools, platforms, how are they keeping themselves updated in the new gen stuff that we constantly hear about. But more importantly, at senior levels, the ability to lead teams,
Right.
the ability to manage change, especially in this very dynamic and agile and fast-paced environment. So I think those are some of the softer elements that are coming into play right now when we look at hiring.
Right. So, as you mentioned, assessments happening across organizations. What are some of the metrics or indicators, I'd rather say, which allow you to track the progress of such initiatives or assessments that have been happening?
So let me take a step back. I think the metrics, and I'm linking this to the learning metrics that you're talking about. So be it the learning programs that we run or the assessments that we run. Some of the key metrics are around the skill gaps. So more and more we are looking at how we are able to reduce the skill gaps, be it when we hire talent or we grow talent internally. The other metrics that we look at is, of course, the ability to retain talent better through our learning programs, the ability to internally grow people rather than go and hire from the market. So a combination of all of this, and obviously a lot of these learning tools and assessments we use also have a direct impact on the performance, the individual's performance, and the time to scale the competency.
Right. So you mentioned that employees today, they require a level of language proficiency or skills proficiency. But when we talk about business or the industry, English is the language of, business. But when we talk about the workers working in assembly lines or at manufacturing units, they require regional content for better learning and understanding and development in their careers. So, how important is that, and how do you think organizations should induce this in their learning initiatives?
I think this is very subjective and related to the kind of industry, or for that matter, the workforce constitution, Savi. Most of the industries that cater to a global client base or global audience or a global workforce have traditionally been looking at English as the medium. And I think that's how it's kind of skewed. Most of the learning programs are skewed there. But what we're seeing more and more is, like you mentioned, be it the assembly line or the manufacturing industry, in some cases even telemarketing executives, customer care representatives, slowly we are seeing the need to also have the regional language come into learning. What some of the trends, or let me also say, one of the challenges that we see in that area is the whole capacity and capability. So unlike English, where there's a lot of content, there's a lot of trainers and capacity out there, here it tends to be limited. So some of the trends, or what we are also seeing, is that we tend to go in-house. Probably it makes more sense to build the content internally, to have the trainers internally who understand the workforce, who understand the culture, and so on. So I think in summary, whether it should be necessary, yes, especially for organizations where you have a workforce constitution or a client base, where the regional language becomes more important.
Right. So, Rekha, my next question is in three parts. So, how do you think L&D teams are working closely with the counterparts in talent acquisition, and how have L&D initiatives helped in smoothing the screening process? And you mentioned earlier about retention being one of the major, an important tool. So, what do you think? How do you think the learning opportunities act as a strong retention tool?
I think one of the biggest evolution, if you see in L&D, is that L&D is no longer working in silo, and huge collaboration between hiring and the HR teams. So it's very directly correlated. Okay, so let me take the first question in terms of talent acquisition and what we are doing there. Uh, the L&D teams work very closely with talent acquisition and identifying skill gaps. So there's a close view on what is the kind of demand we are seeing, what are the kind of skills you need to hire from the market, and which are the skills that are very difficult to hire or where you're facing a challenge. And then the TA team and the L&D team work very closely in either trying to internally build that capacity or even going and hiring probably adjacent skills and upskilling them. So we do a lot of that at entry level and probably one level above that. The second is even in areas like probably hiring women who are coming back from a sabbatical or a career break. The L&D team and the TA team work very closely in terms of bringing them quickly up to speed on technology, on the ways of working, and so on. Then L&T team also works on a lot of competency assessments. So to be able to attract and hire the right talent, there are a lot of insights that the L&D team is able to provide to TA based on the learnability quotient, based on what they see in the training programs, on what kind of skills to hire, what kind of talent to go and tap into from the market. The screening process in itself, like I think you were referring to earlier, so L&D team works hand in hand with TA on skills assessment, competency assessment, and so on. So those are some of the elements in the whole TA space. Coming to retention, I think all of us know that learning has a complete direct correlation to engagement and retention, almost 2x, okay? Here again, Savi, I think some of the things that the learning function can really help with is very customized learning journeys, point in time. The most important being the whole onboarding and induction. The first 6 months is very crucial for any employee. That's when the whole perception is made, first impressions, and the longevity kind of starts kicking in. So a very strong induction onboarding program, then a lot of on-the-job continuous learning, which helps the individual deliver at work. And this is more of learning on the go. So no one is going to wait for a structured classroom or a virtual training program. It's more of, I'm stuck in a problem, I need help, and the learning function should be able to kind of give it on the go. So a lot of on-the-job training and linking learning to progression and career growth. So ready for the next role, ready for the next level, want to move to a new age technology or want to upskill. Employees are able to find all of those opportunities, and that has a direct impact. What has also helped us is community learning. So one, of course, is the learner learning, but teaching or training and leveraging SMEs and people to help build programs, design programs, and deliver has also played a big role in retention and engagement levels. So I think that's how we've been leveraging learning, both in terms of hiring as well as putting it in the whole culture, learning as a continuous culture, and thereby driving better retention.
So you've given a great overview of what kind of business skills are required for the employees today. But when we talk about emotional skills, how do you think the L&D initiatives can foster a culture of compassion, sensitivity, and build an ethical perspective among employees working physically as well as remotely from their homes?
It's such an important question, and I think all the more relevant in today's world, because sometimes we tend to be so business focused, so technology focused. The soft skills, the whole compassion, sensitivity really doesn't get that importance. I think this requires a lot of intentional efforts from the L&D organization and the larger HR team. So some of the key programs that companies are running in this space, and so do we, is a lot of inclusive training programs, not just on the whole sensitive topic of DE&I, but essentially how to bring compassion and sensitivity among employees, for employees to even be aware of different perspectives, different cultures and backgrounds in the ecosystem that they work with. The cultural nuance or training on culture is also another important area that I think most companies are doing, for them to understand, be it their clients or their peers or the larger ecosystem, what are the different cultures that they are dealing with. We also do a lot of training on unconscious bias and ethical decision making, working with virtual teams, because everyone's today in a hybrid model. Some people are in a face to face, some people are still dealing, including managers and reportees, in very virtual mode. So, how do you work well with virtual teams? There's a lot of focus on mentorship, coaching for managers and leaders to be able to manage diverse teams, manage with compassion, with emotional, the whole emotional quotient around it. So, and last, I think, is the whole focus around physical and mental well-being. Now, when I talk of these topics, Savi, it's not just proper training programs, but it's also a lot of talks, people coming and sharing their own experiences, peer-to-peer learning, driving this through coaching, mentoring, and all. So I think these are some of the areas where L&D plays a big role, and most organizations are tapping into it.
Great. I think the employers watching this video, they're going to take a lot of inspiration from what Tredence is doing in the L&D space. So any last piece of advice for the employers, the HR leaders, or the employees watching this video?
I think if the whole industry, the L&D industry has seen significant evolution and change, especially in the last decade, right? So to me, the biggest bit is today organizations truly understand the impact of learning. There's a direct correlation on the business outcomes, on the people outcomes. So it's a great time to be there, and add to it the fact that how technology has pervaded into L&D. So there's just so much of great stuff happening around the digitization, the way we learn, learning on the go. It's like challenged every HR professional and every company. So I think if I were to summarize, it's just that there's a lot that's happening in learning. Learning has a direct impact and plays a big role when it comes to employees' retention, employees' productivity, engagement, and has a direct impact on the whole business outcomes. So I think it's the time for us to truly acknowledge how important this space is and bring the best to it.
Well, thank you, Rekha, for being here with us and giving us such insightful discussion today. Thank you again, and
thank you so much, Savi. Nice talking to you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.